The Seattle Storm have a new head coach who will be introduced officially this week. Plus, what's going on with the CBA? We'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Tempestagi Talk.
You have three people who are selfless like that, three people who are dangerously disciplined like that, and you have a coach that also embodies all of those characteristics. You can expect good basketball.
I love interacting with the fans. I'm excited for them to cheer for us because it's hell when you come here. I even welcome people that could be skeptical because it's new.
There's going to be a standard of excellence and discipline in everything that we do.
The Pacific Northwest, this area, how passionate they are. It's culture everywhere, but it's great culture here. And that's what I want to be a part of, to compete for a championship. That's everybody's goal. And I think it's just how we go about things and habits that we create. I want to be around winners that'll help us get closer to that.
And that's what the fans can expect. And we're going to have some fun.
Welcome back to another episode of Tempestagi Talk, part of the Black Rosie Media Podcast Network. Erica L. Ayala here alongside my usual co-host in Roberta Rodriguez. But we are also joined by Brian Fleurantin, who, of course, is my co-host of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. And not only because it's the off season, but also because once again, our two teams here, New York and Seattle, have some mutual connection. We thought we would everyone hop on here. But Roberta, you are our resident of the Emerald City. So let's start with you. Let's just talk about your reaction to the news that it will be Sonia Raman as the next head coach of the Seattle Storm.
You know, I was very positively surprised when they made the announcement. A couple reasons. First off, I like that they made the announcement very early so the team can prepare, they can get ready, they can put a roster together. I think that it is a clear sign of the direction where the franchise is going. We're bringing a coach that doesn't have head coaching experience just yet. She's just getting to the WNBA and to the head coaching position in the professional level. We're going to talk more about her, but she did have some experience in the college, some head coaching experience in the college level. So I was very positively surprised. I think it's a name that has been, she has been considered for other head coaching positions in the past hiring cycles in the W. I think that Seattle is a good place for her to land, considering where the franchise is, the pieces that they have. And I think my initial reaction is very positive.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, Brian, you would have had opportunity to speak with Sonia throughout the last season because she joined what was Sandy Brondello's last coaching staff in New York, which now has been decimated. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, on an upcoming episode of Gotta Get Up. But for the purposes of this episode of Tempestagi Talk, where we keep a local eye on the Seattle Storm, Brian, what were your interactions like with Sonia? What was the ask under Sandy Brondello with her skill set for the New York Liberty last season?
Sure. Just on an individual level, Sonia is very nice to talk to, very sort of like casual, very sort of like engaging. Like she'll talk basketball with you for a good while. Like she'll really sort of like break down, like give a lot of really good insights and good ideas as to her thought process, how she sees the WNBA and the various sort of basketball related things. So for the folks in Seattle, you're going to get someone who's very engaging, someone who loves to talk and will really sort of have a good conversation with you. So you guys are going to get a really good positive in that regard. So the on-court aspect of it, Sonia was essentially the offensive coordinator for New York in 2025. And the goal for the team was to sort of really try to increase the amount of touches they got in the paint, sort of like creating more, sort of like playing with space a little bit more, trying to find more driving angles, really sort of like creating as many quality shots. And by quality, I mean open threes and rim attempts as much as possible. That was the goal. Early on, you saw the vision play out, but due to New York injuries, which we talked about throughout the year, we didn't really get to see the full vision in the way that Sonia, Sandy, and the Liberty may have wanted. But the fundamental thought process is there, and I think that's going to be very helpful. And I think to the Seattle context in particular, one of the things we talked a lot about during the year was that they took so few three-pointers. I think they took only maybe like 11 or 12 a game. So it was a very small number. With Sonia, her thing is going to be trying to sort of create more open threes for the team, trying to sort of like play with space. And space is more than just taking three-pointers. I think it's sort of like where you position your best players. Oh, can I have a player like a NECA handle a little bit more? Do I task Ezzy with more shot creation responsibilities? I thought that she was going to take a bigger jump in 2025, but she didn't. So now I wonder, okay, Ezzy, we may utilize you in a different kind of role. We may try to get you more off the catch as compared to post-ups. If Slim is back, okay, you may not be the best three-point shooter. How am I going to get you going downhill? How am I going to navigate that? And the biggest question, and I think one that Talisa Ria was mentioning when it came to looking for a new coach, we are going to maximize our 6'4" superstar giant big who's only 19 years old and has a world of potential and might be the best player in like 3 years' time. How are we going to maximize this young lady's skills and really sort of make her into the full force that she can be and is growing into? So I think there's going to be a lot of fascinating things to watch with that. And I think more on the Dom piece, it's having a player that talented and that big, you really get to sort of like test the imagination in a sense. Whereas, if you can handle a little bit, we're going to have you initiate the offense. We're going to get you on the go. There are very few bigs that can match you height-wise. I'd say JJ is one, maybe like a few others that I can't think of right now, but you have that advantage. We're going to press these various buttons to get you into as much space as possible to operate and work with, so you don't have help coming over. If we change the roster, they're not going to be able to sort of like sink in the paint and sort of like dig on perimeter players who aren't good three-point shooters. There's a lot that I think Sonia and the management team just sort of like cook up and come up with. So I'm really excited to see what Seattle does this winter.
Yeah, I think you're definitely talking about her experience within being able to doctor all of that up. I think the question, which we'll have to wait to see what her staff looks like, but she won't be an assistant, Brian. So how much is she realistically going to be able to have her hands on all of these different things? And but all of that to say that, again, she'll build out a staff. And Roberta, she's been a head coach before, not at the professional level, but she has a pretty strong track record. And there's continuity, which I don't know how much that means in today's basketball world, the way things are going. Maybe that's a conversation for a podcast in the future. But she has a proven track record of being identified by her peers and by people in the sport for being coach of the year while she was at MIT, having continuity. So, every 4 years, if not more, having turnover and being able to develop a strong program there. And of course, she also was an assistant with the Memphis Grizzlies from 2000 to 2024. So she comes directly from the NBA, after her one season with the New York Liberty last year. But also, and I think Storm fans might like to know this, she's not a stranger, Roberta, to the building where she will be tomorrow with her official introductory press conference. And that, of course, is the performance facility of the Seattle Storm. Through her wife, she has a connection to Seattle and has even attended some practices and whatnot under then head coach Noel Quinn.
Yeah, she definitely has lots of connections to the team. I also want to highlight the fact that the Storm was able to hire an Indian woman. We have been seeing this trend in the league of white men or just men being hired. So props to the Storm. We're talking about a coach who, like you were saying, she has a track record. She did so. She was able to take the MIT to the national tournament. They were able to win their conference. She had a really good record with them over there. She is highly praised by the Memphis Grizzlies. I never know how to
Grizzlies,
say
yeah.
Grizzlies. And one thing that I really like that people highlighted about her is that she's very analytical and she's constantly studying the game. And I think that with a beast like a force like Dominic Malonga in the center, that's the best thing that the Storm can have right now. A coach who has the ability to identify the positives, who can identify where Dominic Malonga is going to be the most dominant and the most productive for the Seattle Storm. The thing is that we're also talking about a team that really only has 4 players on the roster for now. So that's why I think it's a really good match. Working under Sandy Brondello, and we know that Sandy is also a really good development coach. So I'm also sure that she took a lot from Brondello that she's going to bring to Seattle, and she's going to have a chance to pave the new way of the franchise. I think that this is going to be a really good chance for her to grow in terms of WNBA head coaching status, and also for the Seattle to use her expertise as an analytical person, as an offense director, as someone who knows how to use bigs. We're talking about the New York. When we talk about the New York Liberty, there are bigs. There are lots of bigs in that team. So I think it's a really good, it's a really good match and just a good relation to the city in general.
Yeah, for sure. And again, has those connections. She goes back saying even in the Dan Hughes era that the Seattle Storm were always very accommodating. So not something that I knew going into this hiring cycle, but definitely something that, is one of those things that you learn along the way. What we heard from Talisa is Sonia is a trailblazer, an innovator, and a leader in basketball analytics and strategy. And so, we look forward to her leadership as we pursue another WNBA championship. So once again, Hoeda, this is a Seattle Storm team signaling that they expect to be a contender. And I think that's really interesting because and if you think about specifically the New York Liberty job, Brian, they are with exception of the Aces, and I suppose you could say perhaps Phoenix and Minnesota by proxy, the New York Liberty are one of the top 4 championship ready teams, at least comparative to what we've seen in recent history. But my thing in New York is, what is the right coach to come in to maintain that and even accelerate that when you get rid of a coach like Sandy Brondello, which is, and for me, Hoeda, well, first I want to have Brian reflect on that, and then I want to come to you because I think the Seattle Storm say they are at that level like New York is, but I want to ask you where they really fit in, because it's something that we've talked about before. But Brian, for you, when you hear that a team, again, within the top 5 for sure, of teams that are viably able to compete for a championship, when they have a coaching vacancy, what do you want that search to look like? Does it have to be someone with a certain amount of experience? Can you get a new head coach? I mean, what do you think is the sweet spot? And I'm just doing that because I think there are going to be similarities and differences in what Hoeta says, even though there are some ways that these teams seem so closely linked together, and then other ways that they feel quite literally the thousands of miles apart that they truly are, geographically anyway. But Brian, let's get your thoughts first, and then we'll come to Hoeta on this one.
Yeah, head coaching is such a guessing game in a lot of respects. Like the best
Mhm.
example I always think of is the Golden State Warriors when they fired their playoff coach Mark Jackson in 2014. They brought in Steve Kerr off the television desk and the first year championship, and then they've won three more since. So it's hard to be like,
That's a good
oh, this,
point.
it's like, oh, this box, I check this box, and then success comes. You never know, and you never know when the next superpower could come from. Like, heck,
Yeah.
some random team could be a championship contender tomorrow. We're like, wait a minute, I didn't see that coming at all. So it's really hard to sort of like figure it out. I think for the Liberty context, I would definitely want someone that has been in WNBA spaces before. I feel like that part matters a lot in this sense because with Sandy, she helped stabilize the organization because in 2020, 2021, ownership change, getting out of Westchester, coaching change, COVID, all these kind of things happened all at once. And Sandy, it wasn't like she was coming off the championship run in Phoenix. And that year in 22, she did a lot of stabilizing because Erica, we talked about, I think when you did the show at the time, the Liberty were really in a rough spot. Like they lost seven straight to begin that season, so many injuries, but Naja missed most of the year. It was incorporating Dolson. And Sandy did a lot of really good, she did boss work that year. Like Crystal Dangerfield had her best season as a pro with Sandy Brondello. She won Rookie of the Year with Cheryl in 2020, but as a player, she really sort of like found that footing with Sandy Brondello. Same for Marine Johannes. Natasha Howard was an all-star under Sandy. So you really saw Sandy sort of put a good roster together and build that foundation. And now that they're at a championship level with way more resources coming in, even compared to 2022, I think the new coach coming in, they have I'd say, easier time because you walk in with Brianna Stewart and Jonquel Jones and Sabrina Ionescu, presumably. I'd say 99% sure, but you never want to say 100 on these kind of things. So I think for the new coach coming in, I would want someone with W experience because they get to relate to players. Like you get to really sort of like show players that, hey, this being a pro, going into coach, and that pipeline is available. Like I think we're probably going to get to it sometime in the winter, but that pipeline point matters to me a lot. And I think that especially you really want to create spaces for your players in the league to have an opportunity to get seven-figure salaries. Like I saw it was reported today, Sandy's getting seven figures from Toronto. Nate's got seven in Phoenix, Becky in Vegas. Like there is when the money is going to come in a salary. We'll get to that eventually too. And for players who want to coach and have this as a viable career path when their time is done, I think it would matter a tremendous amount if a retired player is able to land a prestige job, not just in the WNBA, but in all professional sports. Like you look at how the Liberty run, it's top tier fan experience, really a deep, intimate connection that's been built and cultivated over 30 years, even with all the nonsense the franchise has had to deal with from the league, from past ownership, all of these things coming together. That fan base is still rock solid. And I think for a coach coming in, like it makes the job more, it uplifts you a little bit more when you have that foundation. And I think with the talent there, it eases the pressure that comes in. There's going to be pressure, of course, but I think having the talent there, having buy-in across the roster, having that relatability, I think is going to matter a tremendous deal. And I think especially when it comes to free agency and whatever shape it may look like when it comes to how much players can get paid, all these kind of things, having a player who's been in that grind with you as someone who's looking to be like, oh, do I want to make the trip from, let's say, the Sparks to Liberty, just as a random example, having a player there in addition to like the resources and the New Yorkness that is offered to you, I think that gives you another bit of extra in a positive direction.
That's all really interesting because, well, Roberta, just to be blunt, Seattle doesn't have any of that. As it was already alluded to, they don't really have a roster because so many unrestricted free agents. So that's something Sonia's going to have to work with. They do, like we saw with the New York Liberty, have not a number one pick, but they have a number two pick that it sounds like, from what we've been hearing since they decided not to extend or continue on with Noah Quinn, it seems like that's really the selling point here to me, both from Seattle to Raman and vice versa. So in hearing maybe what again a contender, a viable contender in New York is thinking about, what makes you confident about Sonia and her experience that she can be what Seattle needs? And are there any questions that you still have that really just have to come out in the wash, as the saying goes, or that we won't really have an answer to until we see what this roster looks like? And of course, when we see what training camp looks like.
Yeah, I think my main question is how? How the Storm said that they want to win a championship. How are you going to win a championship? First, you have to think about roster construction.
Mhm.
When we look at the past seasons, the roster construction, the past seasons, we did not have championship rosters. We had different. We had like a resemblance. I know that less this past season, people were saying that the Storm would be one of the was a contender. I wasn't that sure about it because it's there are lots of good. There are good pieces, but it seems like they just don't connect. And I mean that by saying, for example, you had Skylar Diggins and NECA, who are proven winners, all stars, veterans, and then all the way on the other end you have Lexi Brown and other players who still have to prove themselves in this league. If you want to be a contender, you need to have proven winners. And I know there's some more orthodox fans want to talk about greediness and, oh, you're just putting pieces here and there, but that's how you win a championship. That's why it's a sport. That's why it's a competition. You have to put the pieces together. For me, the biggest question is how. If the message is we want to be a championship team, how are you going to do that? And maybe why? Why are you in a rush? You know,
Yeah,
they
I
have
mean, I think all of that is fair, Roberta, but what I think is also fair is that those are not head coach questions. Those are front
true,
office questions. And I
true.
mean, you know as well as anyone that I have been
Yeah.
questioning this front office for the Seattle Storm for some of the reasons that you even mentioned. Not having a two guard going into the season and expecting miraculously to be able to shoot from the perimeter. I mean, thank goodness for Erica Wheeler at times, right? But that was clearly not sustainable. Even though it was a very exciting run against Vegas, but it
Mhm.
just showed the flaws. And that's some of what we saw happen in New York as well, Brian.
Yeah, I think that, in I'll circle back to the Seattle part in a minute, but I think for New York, we really saw what happens when various of like fissures are pressed all at once, where it's, oh, I think I've got a really good bench. Oh, wait, someone's got to scale up because the second or third best player in basketball is out for a month. Oh, a top five player is out too. Oh, someone else got to do something. And there were pockets of success in the season. Like Isabel Harrison's success is a really, I think, a positive to point to. But I think when the the pressures of everything else proved to be too much, and I think just I would say the pressures of the injuries I think were too much because I felt like the locker room environment was fine, even though Sandy was saying that she kind of felt it was time at the end, but that's a whole different kind of thing. But the day to day of it all, I thought was still like I thought that there was enough there to work with. I think it was just a situation where injuries may have proven to be too much. But I think with roster construction, it turns to a more, oh, we failed at certain things, and even when they were healthy, they couldn't rebound. So that's a failure somewhere that they have to sort of like uncover and figure out. And for coaching, it's what do I do? And I think for Sonia in the Seattle context, I wonder if she and store management look at the roster and say, I wonder where I can get better at. Because I was gonna to the Seattle piece of it now, I was gonna ask you guys in 2026 or whenever the heck the WNBA is back, they'll have Jordan Horston and Nika Mule on rookie contracts. So I wonder for you guys, how do you sort of see those two in particular really sort of finding a role, or do you want, especially for coming off two severe injuries in the ways that they both did, do you look at the Storm and say, hey, can you look for a big upgrade at the two guard position over a Brittany Sykes in free agency? Like what does the market look like, and what would you guys look to do? And even as far as like the core players who are on the roster, like the big stars, the Sky, Neck, Ezzy, and Gabby pieces of it, do you look at them and say, is this group enough to not be a 5 seed 24, 7 seed 25? Can I upgrade somewhere that gets me a 3 seed and hopefully out of the New York, Las Vegas side of the bracket come playoff time? How do I look at the roster and what I want Sonia to be best at? That part I think is so. I feel like I have like so many like questions as to like how they look at that roster in the 2 years that this core has been there, and year and a half with Gabby back with this iteration of the Storm. I wonder how they look at it, and I wonder if there is an upgrade to be had somewhere.
Well, I mean, in theory, there should be, right? Because again, everyone is a free agent. Just about damn near everyone is a free agent. Also, like, very interesting of you, Brian, to assume that New York is going to be high on, on either side of the bracket, because again, we don't know who their head coach is. And similarly to what we're talking about right now with the Storm, some of the things, admittedly from Jonathan Kolb himself, have to be looked at from the front office lens. And, a coaching staff can impact perhaps, but they're not final call when it comes to making the roster. But I think Brian brings up a lot of interesting points. What is realistic, but also what is the front office expecting of Sonia? Because what we've seen, and we'll hear from her tomorrow, we're recording the night before her official introductory press conference. It's just what worked out. I'll actually be flying to Seattle. I might make it just in time for the press conference, but I'll be on the Zoom call one way or another. But what we heard is kind of more of the same. Not that it's bad, but we have heard that Sonia wants to focus on defense and then figure out the offense after that. Now, as someone who loves defense, I mean, it's a strategy for a reason. It works for Golden State, right? But hasn't Seattle kind of been leaning into its defensive identity for a few years now?
I think what is so hard about trying to figure out what the Seattle Storm is going to be like, what is the team, it's a complete blank page. It is so hard to know what it's going to be, because when you look at the roster today, it's Dominic Malonga, who is a great defensive player. You have Jordan Horston, who is a great defensive player. And then you have Nika Mule and Lexi Brown, who Nika Mule, she has minutes of WNBA play. Lexi Brown, we can't really rely on her as the team's defense or offense. So I think that the defense last year was definitely one of the downsides of the team. We saw everyone just, cruising through the Storm's defense. We saw the biggest threat for this on the Storm side in terms of defense was Dominic Malonga. We saw her stop and just her not let high scorers go to the bat, make their shots. So I find it so challenging to figure out what the mentality is going to be, because like we've said before, this has been an identityless team for such a long time. They have been trying to figure out as they go. It hasn't been working. Do they want to continue that pattern? Is that really what you're going to do? You're going to work on one thing, try to figure out the other, or plan and get that plan rolling to try to get to that contender status. Because we haven't heard from the coach yet, and I know that it's a front office decision. It's absolutely front office decisions, but of course the coach has a big say on it. The coach can influence that, I think, more than anyone else in the franchise. So it's going to be interesting to observe this new era of Seattle Storm. I feel like ever since the departure of Sue Bird and Brianna Stewart, and I've said that so many times, that marked the end of an era. And they try to put 2023 as a new Storm era. I feel like the new Storm era is starting now. It's the first time that they have a blank page with no reminiscent of the Sue Bird team, because up until then the team has always had that shadow of being Sue Bird's team. Now it's starting brand new. I don't know if the Storm is going to bring, because they had 3 GMs last season. They have two GMs now. I don't know if they're going to continue that structure. I don't know what's going to be Talisa's mentality. I know that there were some issues. I know that one of the Jewel Lloyd didn't really trust her decision making in that end, and that was when Pokey Chatman was elevated to associate general manager, and they were able to bring NECA and Skylar. So we also know that a big part of Noel Quinn and Skylar of NECA and Skylar being in Seattle was Noel Quinn. Are they still interested in coming back without Noel Quinn on a completely different coaching staff? Is Sonia the type of coach who relies on her players? Because the Storm was clearly a player-led team. Is Sonia the type of head coach who is going to let her team make decisions, or does she want to take the helm and really take over it as the head coach and the decision maker for the team? So there are so many routes the Storm can go. They keep saying that, yes, every team wants to win a championship. That's right. But how about the development? I feel like the Storm has a really big opportunity to develop a team that can bring back the golden years that they had in the 2000s, 2010s. This is an opportunity. I'm not the basketball mind that the front office is, but if I were the one in charge, I would lean on development, bring a couple of veterans who can help with the on-court aspect. I would let Sonia be the big commander and really focus on developing Dominic Malonga, perhaps keeping Azzy McBagor, Jordan Horston. It's so unfortunate that Nika Mule hasn't had time to play, because we don't know what she can be like. She could be the next point guard for the Storm, but we don't know what that looks like. So honestly, the Seattle Storm is one of the biggest question marks for me in the WNBA, and it doesn't have to. That's the team that I cover, because there are more questions than answers, and they are closer. They are so far from answers. Tomorrow we're going to hear from the coach for the first time. There is a lot that needs to be figured out. They have a big opportunity in their hands, and we have to see what they're going to do.
Yeah. And again, I just want to go back to some quotes. This is coming from an ESPN article. But before I read the quotes, I want to say that I find it really interesting. And maybe it's not completely fair, if I'm being honest and trying to be transparent. I don't know that it's completely fair to judge Noel Quinn on what is being said by the organization, or specifically Raman now. I think that we have to, keep a fine grain of salt and provide context. But I do think it's interesting that there was this hurry up and wait attitude under Noel Quinn with Dominique Malonga, where everything out of the gate has been Dominique Malonga with regard to Raman. Now, how much of that is, again, because there's so many unrestricted free agents? That could also be why it's like, well, let's talk about the player we know is under contract for sure.
But I'm not like, by no, I'm not saying anything like about Noel Quinn. That's
I'm
not
not saying
what
that
I'm
you're
saying.
saying that.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
offering that as context because of what I'm about to read. And again,
Oh, okay.
reading what we're seeing so far, I think it's very clear that there's already a focus on Dominique Malonga.
Yeah.
And my biggest critique of Noel Quinn and that coaching staff and maybe the front office as well was when you have the number 2 pick, you play
You
the number
play the
2 pick.
number 2 pick.
So, I mean, but what we heard Raman say is that, when thinking specifically about Dominique Malonga, she talks about how she was a problem to play against and to scout against when she was with New York. Goes on to say, really, really excited to coach her and to get to know her both on and off the court and build where she can go next. What does the sophomore leap look like for her? I like how she said sophomore leap and not what we usually hear. But anyway, she goes on to say, I think it's really important not to pigeonhole her in terms of position or in terms of skill set, but really imagine kind of a positionless type of future for her and really see how we can move her around on both ends. So that's really interesting to me because I think it reads in some ways like Swiss Army knife, which maybe is that what Ezzy has been for the Seattle Storm. You talked about defense and did not mention Gabby Williams. I don't even know how you could do that because clearly she was not okay after that knock to the head, and has alluded to as much. But Gabby Williams is the defensive heartbeat for the Seattle Storm. And quite honestly, maybe any team that she plays for. But to see that this is a coaching staff that wants to play this positionless basketball where perhaps Dominique Malonga is if not the center of it, a very integral part of different elements, I find really interesting. But then also again, it goes to what is Sonia saying about how this team is going to play. Now, some of these things I think we have to also say with a grain of salt. These are things that a coach is going to say when you don't know what your roster is, when there's a pending collective bargaining agreement. They're things that sound nice and they're vague. They're vague, but also like, who's going to argue against we're going to compete every night? Of course, a coach is going to say that, but what does that look like? But
Yeah.
that's what Raman has said. I think it starts with we're going to compete every night. She said of her philosophy, we're going to have a growth mindset of getting better every day. We're going to instill selfless together, team first, sacrifice for each other, celebrate each other's accomplishments mentality. Instill a culture of accountability and bring joy every day into the building and in everything we do. Now that sounds great. And it sounds familiar, Roberta. It
It's
sounds
not,
like
yeah.
things that we've heard before. So what is different here? And in some ways, maybe it's not what's different, but what is it that's going to be real? Because she also ends in this article for ESPN by saying, I think that is certainly something I've seen from the Storm for a long time over the years, and I don't think she's wrong. I think all of the things that she said in a nutshell, they do comprise how we're accustomed to the Seattle Storm playing basketball. But what
Mhm.
does it mean when she says, and it's what she wants everyone to embody and to continue and keep growing. Like, what does that growth look like? Does it mean that it's an evolution of the character and identity of the Storm at its core? Like, I don't know. What does that practically look like?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it is so hard to try to, figure out what that's going to look like. What we have, and in terms of that is concrete, is if we're talking about growth, you can't just not think about Dominic Malonga. But I think that sometimes we do forget about Jordan Horston. So, because of the injury. So, is she saying that she's going to anchor on Malonga, Horston, Mio, and then try to build the team around her? What is she going to go for in the draft? that growth, and honestly, what she said sounds very Noel Queen, and just very what the Storm has been saying for a long time. Growth and development for the Storm, they have what they need, like they kind of sort of need now, but it's gonna come in free agency. Like they don't have the pieces to know if they can be a contender, and like it's what they have is a coach who can help build that identity. And that's like for what Craig is saying, it's hard to talk about how she's going to help the Storm grow right now. With what they have of solid, the way she can help the Storm grow is developing Dominic Malonga. That's the only concrete thing that she has at hand.
Right. And I mean, again, we've said that a few different times. Just want to acknowledge we've got Craig in the chat.
Yeah.
Just hopping in, also saying if Queen Bee was there, speaking of Liberty, I think they would have ran it back. No first round exit. Also, Kevin, first comment. Thank you, Kevin, for hopping in. I mean, again, some of this is just talking, right? And there will be time tomorrow to ask more detailed questions. But again, the answers might not change. There is a pending CBA, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. This is they'll have to really get aggressive in free agency, which I have concerns about the front office when it comes to what they can do. But yes, as Craig says here, building around Dom Horston, y'all know I'm not a believer in Horston as much as other people who show up on this podcast. I'm not sold. So she's gonna have a lot of work to do to convince me that she offers what this team needs. I just don't know that I'm a believer right now. And then draft picks, to which Aloysius says the Storm is only one shooting guard away from becoming a championship contender. Maybe AZ Fudd. They have the third pick. I think that's interesting. I mean, still some injury concerns when it comes to Fudd, but Craig, me either with regard to what? Because I said a lot there. But Brian, I see you wanting to double dutch in. So let me know what you're thinking.
Yes. So to Aloysius's point, we don't know where they're going to pick yet, because theoretically, since they have the Sparks pick this year, and if the draft hits, if the draft structure is the same as it always is, there's a possibility they land number one. And in the funniest outcome, we spent all of last winter wondering, oh, hey, is Olivia Miles going to be a Seattle Storm? It would be so hilarious if Olivia Miles ends up a Seattle Storm 1 year later next to Dominic Malonga. Like, that could happen theoretically. We don't know what if they get the number one pick, if that pick winds up Chicago, ends up in Minnesota, number one pick. So there's a lot to uncover when it comes to the draft piece, and we need to dive into that eventually. But
we need a CBA first.
And who knows? I haven't seen any reporting that says the draft lottery structure is going to change. So if it stays the same and they land the number 2 and number 3 pick, they get a lot of exciting opportunities to uncover and see, oh, hey, is it AZ Fudd? Is it our fam? I'm probably not a fan because too many bigs, but you have Flau'jae Johnson. There are so many options that sort of come to mind, and we have to sort of see if the players are healthy coming out of the NCAA season, if there's international talent that sort of bubbles to the surface. So there's a lot to uncover there, and once the CBA is done and we see what the lottery is, I think the lottery placement is going to determine a lot of what they do in free agency, because sort of similar to the Dom point, if you get a player, just theoretically, like a Miles, for example, and the 3-point shooting from last year at Notre Dame, hopefully this year at TC, if that carries over this season and the 3-point shot is still there, and you plug her in at the 2 guard and insert free agent acquisitions alongside your now young big 2 of Malonga and Miles, that gives you a lot more room to work with. And then I guess the next question returns to, can we compete with a sophomore and a rookie taking on big roles immediately, what would that look like? And do we trust Storm management to find the best players to accentuate their positives? Because I know last
Yeah,
year,
it's the last part for me, Brian.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off here. It's the last part for me because
I
I
agree.
just have front office issues here with this team. I have trust issues when it comes to the front office. To that end, also, is Olivia Miles the right pick?
That's what I'm thinking. It's like right now,
It's a wild, wild west for Seattle.
that's what it's like. Everything is up in the air because the team hasn't had any identity. They have been all over the place.
So, but whose fault is that?
The
Because
front
they
office.
exactly, and that's my
Yeah.
point. But we've said
And
this.
I've
I
been
say
saying
this
that
on my
forever.
other
And
Seattle podcasts. Listen, if your organization is going down a path you don't want it to go down, and apparently you can only be one season removed from a championship and that still be the case, I'm looking at you, New York. But anyway, what is the thing that the GM is going to try to do before anything else? Get rid of the head coach, because at least in theory, if a GM is ready to make that move, then they buy themselves, in theory, perhaps
Mhm.
another year before they are either let
Yeah.
go or they are promoted so high up in the organization that we never hear from them again. Kind of like what happened with
Yeah.
Bill Lambier. I don't know, but and that man gone now. He just out quietly. But women don't always get those kinds of opportunities. But that's a topic for another podcast. But
Yeah,
I
but
think you're right. Like, this should be an exciting time for the Seattle Storm because of what you said, Roberta. It is a clean slate. Everyone's going into free agency. And if you're a team like Golden State, if you're a team like, I think Atlanta has made some interesting moves that some people didn't understand, but I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Let's see what that happens. Now, maybe coaching faltered a little, or honestly, just play and experience in the postseason. But, you have teams that are coming up where the organization's front office, even if it's maybe not the direction that would in mass suit the WNBA, all WNBA teams, there is a vision, there is a direction, there is the willingness and ability to set forth that direction and go with it. I have not seen that. I have not heard it. Or even if I have, it has not been reinforced. Anything that we hear from Seattle is not really being reinforced. It reminds me of this other Seattle team, the Kraken, that I cover, where it's like we're hearing that, we're going to be a perennial playoff team, but we're not going to offload this really expensive contract that we have with a goaltender. We're going to bring in 3 goaltenders on a roster, which not a lot of NHL teams do, but we're still only going to play and maybe even overwork the one goaltender, So, like, what are we doing? How are you going to be a perennial playoff team if you can't do the basic things right? And that is the frustration that I also feel covering the Seattle Storm at times, because it's just an unclear goal, or the goal is what everyone wants. And for this organization, they're attaching the goal of another championship to like this pride of being an organization to have 4 championships, and they should stand on business and be proud. But what's missing is the steps. Like, Brian, this, Jonathan Kolb is a process guy. He will walk you through his steps. He will walk you through when the steps, maybe not in as much detail, but he will walk you through when the steps have gone awry. He made me understand and even be a little more comfortable with the Sandy Brondello firing. I don't completely, or parting of ways, I don't completely agree with it still. I still have a lot of questions, but he was able to justify and articulate why the organization made that move. I don't always get that, Roberta, from the Seattle Storm. And so even though it's a blank slate, and that should be really exciting for someone in the GM role, history is making me question it.
Okay, what is one thing that I've been saying about Seattle and Seattle in general culture ever since the start of this podcast? that Seattleites are passive aggressive, right? They don't want to make the hard decisions. They don't want to come out as the bad guys. So they're going to let, with all apologies, my language, but they're going to let shit go down to other people. And I feel like that's what happened to Noelle Quinn. She was at the eye of the storm. She took all of the heat when the stuff with Jewel Lloyd was happening. She took all of the heat this season and she was fired. But at the same time, and while Noelle Quinn was completely, I know that they're going to say, oh, the franchise, the owners, this and that. But the reality of what we saw is that they let Noelle Quinn be bombarded with exaggerated criticism that went beyond her basketball coaching ability. What we have of concrete is a general manager who made barely any moves for days during the start of the free agency in 2023. And that year was one of the worst years of the team. And then you have the following year when, they lose another player. Like the Seattle Storm is a Seattle team, the same way as the Kraken is a Seattle team. And they are making decisions that are going to keep everyone in their comfort zone, that, franchises and ownerships are not going to take a lot of heat. They're going to let other people take the heat. And like it gets me on my nerves, because as a Latina and as someone whose foundational years in the United States was New York City, I don't get how they get away with all of this. It's just, they are going to, I feel like the GM is going to have to do an amazing job this year to make up for all of the past ones, if they want to, get more credibility. Because when you have a player who says that they don't trust you to the point where you have to elevate an assistant coach to associate head coach position, that's a telling. And you have, the other way around being fired. So it's a Seattle thing. They don't want to come out as the bad guy. And while things don't blow up, they're going to get away with it.
I hear you saying that perhaps Noelle Quinn was put in a bad situation. We've talked about that before. It was, not the most fruitful situation. I mean, I hear the arguments. I hear them. I think also what I'm hearing is that, and this comment from Craig, no, we got a raw deal unless there's something really bad we don't know.
There's nothing bad we don't know.
I find it difficult to agree that Noelle Quinn got a raw deal here. I do, because there's still things that Noelle Quinn, I think, needed to be able to handle. Yes, the roster construction, very confusing, and it's out of her control once the season starts. But things that are under her control are minutes played. And it was the second consecutive year where we had players that at times were being maybe overworked, or kind of being the team player and playing out of position, or taking on more minutes than they would usually do. And then they go from that to no minutes, to did not play, coach's decision, like we heard from Sammy Whitcomb, in the season prior, or that we heard from Tiff again this year. Dominique Malunga, I don't get it. I know some people are like, oh, it's good development. Then don't pick her at number 2. Then mess around and see who takes her and scoops her up. Where would she go and not play minutes? Well, other than teams that don't need her. But again, if you didn't need her, then don't take her. But anyway, for me, I don't think that you can say that Noelle Quinn, it wasn't an easy position, I think, if you look at his history in the context. I can offer some space for that. But there were also some things that I think Noelle Quinn needs to continue to grow and develop. We've had this argument before. I do not think she was a top 5 coach in this league. I just don't. Not yet. Potential, absolutely. But was she ever during her tenure? No. No, not in a league where you have Cheryl Reeve, Sandy Brondello, Becky Hammond. I mean, what are we talking about? Stephanie White. Like, come on. There's no way that what we were seeing from Noelle Quinn on a night-to-night basis, in and out, was matching. Now, again, can you make the argument that a little bit of a tough roster, injuries, all of that? Yeah, but so can every other coach. So I think, it's somewhere more in the middle for me when it comes to this. But again, that lends itself to, what is the pipeline looking like? And there is a big job that's still on the market. That's the New York job. And of course, we're going to talk about that. But let's switch gears here, because we're going to hear from Sonia tomorrow. We'll see if some of the questions that we're posing are answered. But again, some of these things, we're just going to have to wait till we ride out whatever's happening with the CBA. Speaking of, we did get an extension. It seemed like a little bit of a begrudging extension agreement, at least from what we were hearing from the WNBPA. Ooh, excuse me. And so I want to talk about that. We get an extension, Brian, but for me, the way that this negotiation goes, it seems pretty straightforward. And I alluded to this on CBS, but I'm going to get straight to the nit and the grit here. What it seems like is that while the league, the WNBA, will attest and agree that the salary should be increased, it seems like what they don't agree with is that players should immediately get close to what the revenue share is on the men's side, which is close to about, if not over 50%. It's like almost 50%, Brian, right?
Yeah,
Or it's on the nose. It's 50 on the nose, because I've seen conflicting reports. So it's at or close to 50%. What it sounds like to me is that the league is willing to concede that, yes, salaries should be significantly higher, and they're willing to go higher on salaries, but they are not willing to concede anywhere close to 50%. And right now, as far as the best knowledge and reporting that I've seen on the matter, is that WNBA players are in single digits when it comes to revenue share. So going from, let's just be generous and say 10%, going from 10% to 50%. I mean, that is significant. That's a large sum, right? That's a large chunk of percentage there that we're talking about. And just because it didn't get done in the last CBA don't mean that it's right that it's not done now. I mean, I think that's a fair way of saying. But I guess I want to come to Roberta first, and then Brian. What is the number? Like, what is the balance? Is it, I don't know, like a 40% increase on high-end salaries or salaries across the board, and then you get to 25%? I'm literally just making up numbers, but I don't know. And I don't know, does either side know? Maybe that's the rub here, but to me, it just sounds like they have to come up with some numbers in between 9 and 50%, and some number that it can be exponential amounts of ways or numbers to decide how to increase and improve salaries. So as much as the conversation, and understandably so, has been pay what you owe, but what is that? And the reason I think, Roberta, that number is probably hard for both sides to come up with is because of something else that we hear the PA saying. The books are not open, or at least they're not open to the players. They might not even be open to WNBA league officials. That might be an Adam Silver thing. But Roberta, what do you think? What is it realistically going to take? Or maybe just what do you want to see as far as the next CBA?
One person that I really trust when it comes to the economics of the WNBA and just economics of sports in general is David Barry. I think he's such a student of sports economics. And he says that the league could go 50-50 with players. I am a little more conservative when it comes to numbers. Well, I would say not really conservative, but I think that maybe 50-50 might be too soon for players to reach with the league, just because, like it or not, the league is still in a financial growth phase. I know it's much different from when the last CBA was signed, but I honestly don't think it can be. I don't think that the league should. I think it should be on at least a 25% share. I think that's the minimum that it could go, because yes, it is about the money, but it's also about the respect and the acknowledgement of the fact that players are the ones that are bringing the revenue. People are coming to games to watch the players, not to watch Kathy say whatever she's going to say.
Right.
Not
And
to,
so then my counter to what you're saying is that the players are responsible for much more than 25% of the reason that people come to an arena.
they are, and I do think that at some point,
More than 50% if we keep it funky.
yeah, what I'm saying is that, like, at some point it can get to 50-50, but maybe right now, because of cost of operation, it needs to be something more on the 30 something percent side. I'm trying to think of both sides agreeing, because I find it very hard. I think it's impossible. I have 0% belief that the league would agree to 50%. I have 0% faith that they would agree to a 40%. The league is being very adamant about, just not giving the players.
Yeah, it seems like they're
that.
saying more of a fixed salary model, that they don't want to entertain revenue share, or at least an increase in revenue
I
share.
think players should refuse anything that's fixed numbers. I don't think players should agree to it. I think that players should insist on the percentage base, because a percentage will always be fair. They will always match what they're doing. Now, what a fixed number is not always going to reflect a fair percentage. So I have a feeling that it's going to end up in the 30s, like 30%. I think that's as far as the league's going to go. I think that the league is willing to. I have a feeling that the league is kind of like, yeah, let them walk out, let them not play the next season, see how it goes. And I think that the league's going to suffer a lot, because players now have many more options. But I don't think it's going to be an easy negotiation. And I think if a revenue share is agreed upon, it's going to be in the 30%.
Brian, what say you? Just a comment to refresh the palate. Craig saying this league's ownership structure is whack.
I think, to Roberta's point, they are adamant about not doing the revenue share. And I think, to your point, the fixed piece, with the amount of money that's coming into the league, and even with the TV deal, there's an out in 3 years. So if everything is on the same trajectory as it is now, by the time they come to the next TV deal, it's instead of a 2.2 billion, it could be a 5.2 billion. So there's way more income coming into the league. And if you're on a fixed salary, you're getting like a slice of a slice of a slice of the bigger pie. And that really makes it impossible to navigate, because the league does this thing where they put the number, veterans minimum salaries are going to be $300,000. Yeah. But it's like, if you're making so much more money now as part of NBA enterprises, how is it that the money is double dipping into owners? Like, the owners are getting it two ways: one in the capital raise, one in the ownership share in the league currently, and then others who have NBA teams. You're getting it three ways. And
Yes. Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt because you said something that I think is really important. You talked about the capital raise, Brian. Now, why, Brian? I'm asking this question to tease out a little bit more from you here or from us. But why, Brian, would ownership get part of the capital raise? Or better yet, the better question is, yes, capital was raised, but what is it about that investment that makes it, even more removed from whatever can be offered to the players?
Yeah, because in 21-22, it was 75 million raised via various investors like Nike, I think Joe Tsai, and a lot of other owners and like big money folks put in for that raise, and that got them a percentage of the league. So now that we're seeing record gate $1 million gates at Barclays Center every night, all $1 million gates in Indiana, sold out in Las Vegas, all these places. That revenue is going this way to the capital side that put the 42 in. It's going into the W owners, of which we have the double dippers in WNBA and NBA, and then you have the other side that's getting it too. So the owners are getting so much revenue coming in, and the players they're only even getting the revenue share piece if they hit the revenue target the league has set out for. What is that target? They have not communicated that to us, and throughout this process they've been saying, "Oh, we haven't been able to hit it," and they've been citing the wobble season in 2020 as why they're never able to get it. And it makes it so challenging to sort of like track down and sort of iron out just exactly what their books are, because I was thinking about it a while back to the Adam Silver point about not sharing. Like, it kind of frustrated me because beyond just the players, everyone's making more money, but the players on a fixed salary, and with fixed salaries, with inflation and all this other madness, you're not going to really get everything that's owed to you. But I think what frustrated me also, and I need to like dedicate my brain to writing this out in full, but it frustrates me because I think back specifically to the 2022 men's All-Star game in Indiana, and what the event was poorly received. Like, no one liked it. No one thought the players cared. They thought the events were whack. The only thing that got universal praise that entire weekend, that 3-point contest, was Stephen Curry and Sabrina Ionescu. Sabrina coming in off her off season, a lot of things to do on her end. She came in, got them the house, popped the big number, highest rated event of that entire weekend. And it's, oh, hey, the WNBA player, come on in. We're gonna use your celebrity, your star power, your influence to pop a number, draw a big gate, and then that's it. And then I was also I finally tracked this quote down. It took me like 2 years to find it, but at the draft in 2024, someone asked Kathy about the TV deal, and she mentioned that the NBA and WNBA went to market together. So, because like their whole thing was, it's going to be 330 days of like programming and content for for streamers, providers, all of these things. And with all the money that's coming in, 76 for the men, 2.2 for the women, you're bundling them together as a package to sell to get more money for the men. Because, live sports programming is the only thing that draws these days. Everything else, just no one wants to watch on their television anymore. Live sports brings them in. So you're using the WNBA as a draw to suss out more money from Amazon, NBC, ESPN, all these channels. But when it comes time to being like, oh, hey, I'm going to make sure you guys are really getting the real pie here and really getting a piece of it, it's, oh, nah, man, share? Like, what does sharing mean to you? Like, that part drives.
Yeah, Adam Silver is trash, been trash. Like, he's holding the brass, holding the line, whatever you want to say, for the MNBA, but they've also been trash, not to mention just wrong, and also think that at minimum WNBA players are idiots, but also that the public, like, we see through it. Like, the whole thing, this clip circulated on my For You page again, where a woman, I'm sorry to this woman, I don't know her name, but was asking Adam Silver, well, why can't Connecticut move to Hartford? And then it was, he's like, well, it's not in the market. And the interviewer was like, well, Hartford is in the market. And then there was a lot of semantics in why, it was a lot of semantics that were shared. But I think a question worth asking at a very super high level, and I'm going to ask it and pose it as a question is, and I've been saying this for years, if the business of the WNBA is bad, why aren't we holding the people responsible for the WNBA's business accountable for their bad business practices?
Because they've been using the WNBA as a scapegoat for all this.
Craig saying team owners own 42%, and that number has fluctuated in the last several years, including because of the capital raise. But what, like 42%, almost 50%. I know that much. Numbers sometimes scare me, but I can get percentages because I used to be a bartender, and I know how to calculate 20% in particular very quickly. But again, I've said this before. Whether we're thinking about some of the peculiarities, that's a tough word to say sometimes, especially when I'm tired, the intricacies and the interesting parts of whether it's the Connecticut Sun and Mohegan deal that they're trying to strike, whether it's why revenue share, whether it's even, again, going back one CBA before. And again, another thing I was laser focused on is they made that deal in 2019. And yes, the numbers were contingent on what they were able to bring in, let's just for all intents and purposes say box office, right? Tickets, right? That was part of the deal. But then nobody would answer when I asked the question, okay, then you have this unprecedented thing that happens in the first season of that deal. When did you call the first meeting to go back to the negotiating table? Because it would have behooved both sides, quite honestly, to have a conversation at minimum on how they were going to operate. So I would love for someone to tell me what happened, if anything at all, immediately following that. But I digress. There are, because and just one more point, Brian, and then I'll swing by it over to you. But the other point, and I made it earlier, the players are driving much more than 50% in a lot of different ways. Is really my estimation. And again, we're just talking about the percentage, because to me, that's only half, the maybe arguably more significant half, but that's only half of the equation here. Because if I'm the WNBPA, I'm probably not agreeing to anything that is not both a significant salary structure, and even more, even if they had to focus on one thing, I think they have to focus on the salary cap as a way of perhaps bring up the basement of the salary cap, and that immediately, right, should impact everyone's salaries from rookie on up, right? So you have to figure that out. Salary cap within conjunction of what, again, a base or fixed rate is for these players, that has to go up. The business would support that going up. But then what also has to happen is not only do you get a percentage, but you are explicitly, painfully clear on what is and is not a part of that. Because since the numbers are, shall we say, obscure right now, my concern is that if they lock in really at any number, but then they are beholden to the interpretation that the people controlling the accountant, in this case, it seems to be the MNBA, you're beholden to what their reports say. I would suggest, if there is a way that and I think the Players Association has some of this in support of their negotiating argument, but I think it needs to be written in or explicitly understood that the Players Association will conduct an independent audit, and they should be able to do that. 100%. And if you have those terms, then in my estimation, based on the trajectory that we're seeing in women's basketball, there should be no good business reason, with all of those very specific, and I didn't even go to business school. I walked through the business school to take my poli-sci courses. So you know what? All of the business 101 trolls, this is just good. This is contracts. This is because I was raised by a lawyer. If someone's trying to play hardball with you, then and you want more, then do what it takes to make sure that you understand exactly how the game is going to be scored. And if the league doesn't want to do that, then they better come up with a big number on both sides of the fixed rate and the percentage. If you don't want people cooking your books, then give everything. Give them everything. But somehow I don't think that's going to happen either. So I think it goes back to what Aloysius is saying here. The question is, who is going to blink first? And my gut is telling me that the league is underestimating, or at least has. I don't know if they've woken up yet. I think they've been underestimating how important the players feel holding the line is. I don't think the 100%. League completely understands, or maybe the better word perhaps is that I don't think they respect where the players are coming from.
And so, and we've seen that.
Yeah. And I don't think that they see it as good business, but to me, it's the only way to do business for here and posterity is that they either have to get that number up a significant amount and live to fight another day as far as transparency, or if it doesn't go up the way they want it, they have to make sure that they get access to those books and clear-cut indicators of success, because that cannot be wishy-washy. And for a long time, 30 years almost of the league, that's exactly what it's been, being beholden to the guys or the gays, excuse me, G-A-Z-E, of men when it comes to what is successful women's basketball, even though they are the ones who hold the purse strings. So the success is arbitrarily, whether incidentally or purposefully, accelerated or held back because of what is and isn't done at the NBA.
Yeah.
But Brian, if you want to pop in real quick, and then we'll come back to you, Roberta.
Sure. Initially, I was going to talk, I read a story from Alexa Philippou at ESPN about Kathy's sort of like deteriorating relationship with players. And one of the big sort of flashpoints early was that she insisted on getting them back into the bubble in 2020 when the players were like, nah, like I ain't really trying to feel it. And Kathy's whole point was the business. So it shows bad faith that you drug all of them down to Bradenton, Florida for a summer camp of basketball and within COVID. And then now you come out and say, oh, because you guys played in a season with no fans, you're not able to get to that money because you didn't hit whatever target we got. It's really bad faith. Like, I know Kathy is representative of someone else, but still, is it bad faith? And I think also to your other point, and as you're talking about it, I was thinking about it in real time, like, especially when it comes to the books, we would have to sort of like get a definition from the league as to what basketball related income is. Like, that's always particular on the men's side. Like, every year, their PA goes through the books and make sure, oh, this is basketball income. This isn't basketball income. And I think for the W, with so much money coming in,
100%,
there's really going to be a big definition as to what that income is. Like, I wrote about it in the newsletter a while back. Like, sports leagues have become so beholden to like money coming in from like betting companies, all those kind of things. There's like millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like, teams have partnerships, so that's basketball related income.
Yeah.
Like, all these partnerships, all these sort of like connections that they've been able to make. If the players can get that defined as basketball related income, that's money coming right into their pocket. Oh, we're partnering with Hennessy, for example, and they're going to have a sponsorship on the court. That's basketball related income. Oh, we're partnering with Opil. We're getting these kind of things. That's basketball related income. What does that money look like? How much of it are we entitled to get? And to your salary cap point piece, with the salaries going up, even if it stays at a fixed rate of $300K vet men, $850 max, it's still going to require an overhaul of the cap, because right now, 1.1 or 1.2 million, Yeah, some
Is
low
it
ass number.
1.5, I think?
I think it's 1.5. Yeah. So like you have on a team theoretically with 2 max players, they get 850K. That's 1.7. Cap's over. Like there's gonna have to be a significant scale of the cap too, and within that, this is where I think on the men's side, there's been so much chaos with the salary cap because now they have like those stupid aprons where it's you can go over the first one, but if you go over the second one, you can't you can't shoot a pick for 7 years, all that kind of nonsense. Within that, it becomes what is the cap going to look like? Because right now it's a pretty hard cap. Like
extremely.
We've seen like I saw one time I was looking at I think it was Her Hoop Stats or somewhere like the Liberty had literally $5 of cap space, and I'm like, are we going to send a cup of coffee to Liberty to fill that spot? I don't know. So it's like, you would have to, I think, at the same time as you're raising salaries, you're almost going to have to eliminate the hard cap because it's going to be impossible to build a team. And I think especially for fan bases and play, like I think there's been throughout the I'm going to a brief tangent and I'm going to get out of it quick, but throughout the 2010s on the men's side, there's been so much like player movement because hey, the cap is so weird, we can't keep one player here for a particularly long time. And I think, especially for W, as they're gaining more footing, as they're really becoming institutions in their market, that really comes with the players being there and being present for a long time.
Yeah.
Like the reason, beyond just being the Liberty's first #1 pick, the reason why Sabrina is so beloved in New York is that she was here when they sucked. Like she was here when they sucked. Like she helped get them out the mud when Benaisha came in 21, and we saw the gradual building to this moment. It came from players staying in a place and being there for a long time so they can really get familiar with the city, really be comfortable and be known in that way. It's why like Liberty fans love Benaisha Laney Hamilton so much because she grinded it out with them in the mud. Same with Sabrina. Like you have to make it so that way it's appealing for players to stay in a market and have them stay for a really long time so they can really be sort of like institutions in a city. Like I think it was partially one of the things that Jonquel Jones talked about in her big story where it's like, hey, who is to be featured? Who is to be represented? Who is to be a star? And I think within that stardom comes a familiarity, and that comes with also just being in a place and really being solid, well compensated, well sort of like known for a long time. And I think for the league, as they put the cap together, it's how do we make it so that way our stars stay put in a place, they're happy, they're comfortable, they have the amenities, the salary, the facilities, all those things that they need to be in a place for a long time so we can really as a league just lift ourselves up even more. Like it's hard. Like you wouldn't want to have like just randomly pull Brianna Stewart. Oh, Stewie's in Seattle 2 years. Oh, she's gone to Minnesota for 2 years. Like you need that player and that really, that franchise like face of the team type player to really be in a place for a long time where they really get to sort of be a part of the city's fabric. And I think that's gonna come with proper payment. And for the league, if they're like them players are punks, what they gonna do? Like these players, like you're not gonna punk them. You can't disrespect them like that. And you've got to make it so that way you give them something that they could look in the mirror and be like, you know what? It's not everything I wanted, but it's most of it. Like you have to, like they're gonna try to play a hardball with a group of people who can walk away. They can go somewhere else. Like they can go play for Fener. They can go play in Turkey. They can go play for Valencia. There are options available. It may not have an NBA arena to it, but they've done so much in spite of the NBA and ESPN, all these places not really backing them up like that. So if it's like that again, I'll figure it out, kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's proof of concept with even Athletes Unlimited and Unrivaled that I want to talk about coming up because it does circle back to why we have a new head coach in Seattle, because the former head coach in Seattle has a new head coaching job. I know that was a lot, but don't worry, we'll break it all down again. But Roberta, just as we close up CBA talk, I wanted to have you round it out for us. We talked about a lot of things, and if you can maybe also chime in here And Brian and I will chime in at a later point in time, but Aloysius is asking, do you think they'll bring in replacement players if a deal can't be made? Now, that would be under a situation where the players would opt to strike. Those would be replacement players, or sometimes they are referred to as scabs, especially because this is a union matter. So it would be crossing the picket line in
Yeah,
the
that's what
traditional
I'm.
sense. But Roberta, thoughts on the CBA? And then if you have any thoughts about Aloysius' question.
Yeah, about Alicia's questions, is that even legal? That's kind of like, aren't players protected by union rights? But that might be just my lack of knowledge on how unions work here. One thing that I think is very important, and I know that I always bring that side to the conversation. Someone asked, I think you, Erika, asked, why don't we hold the decision makers in the NBA? Why do they keep saying, why do they get away with it? It's because they thrive on the largely spread idea that nobody watches women's sports. They believe in
A
that,
false
and
sexist premise that has proven to be
yes,
untrue, but
exactly,
they
exactly.
perpetuate it because of machismo. Got it. Okay.
Yes, so the NBA knows that they have a big fan base and they have a lot of fans who believe that. We see it in social media, we see it in conversations on our day-to-days. So the WNBA shoots themselves because they believe that public opinion is never going to swing to the player side, but that has changed. So my
They didn't
opinion,
learn by an entire partial owner of the Atlanta Dream being not only kicked out of the league, but of the Senate. But I
yes, but they still, and we see by what has been revealed by Nafisa Collier, we see by what has been revealed by Neko Gumake, the league takes the players for granted. They underestimate the players. They are sexist and racist. And I think that the underlying issue is that the same way that I believe that, all of those issues, they are not really economic. They are mostly like social. There is like, for such a long time, the NBA got away with that, with just letting people run amok with the narrative that the WNBA bleeds money, that the numbers are low, that players don't understand the business, and now that's all coming out, and we know that that's not true. So I fully believe that the reason why the NBA is not caving into the players' demands is because they believe that widespread sexism is going to protect them from criticism.
Well, with the track record the United States of America has, why wouldn't they? But
Yeah, exactly.
let's move on here, because there's a lot to discuss. But I do want to come back to something Craig said. Why don't the NBA and the investors have to pay anything? They just take revenue off the top. Yeah, that's exactly what they do, because the point that I was trying to make about the capital raise is that capital money has to be paid back plus interest. So it's more than 75 mil that's coming back to whomever invested. And as Brian said, some of them are double dipping. So some of those are NBA owners
Mhm.
who are also WNBA owners. So that money is coming back to them by however many effective, let's just use the term shares, right, that they purchased into. So when you look at some of the things with regard to the expansion fees and the broadcast rights deal and all of those, you still have to less that by 75 million plus whatever the interest is. But that being said, as I broke down on CBS before, at least from the numbers that we do know, from the numbers that we do know, the capital raise itself, in theory, again, we don't know the books, so I'm not looking at their balance sheet. I'm not looking at their cash flow, but in theory, right, 75 million has been covered by the most recent expansion team fee, or almost, I guess, because they were at about 50, I think. And then that doubled immediately, instantaneously. I don't know, like the growth rate for the expansion fees alone shows to me that there's value, because there's no way you go from whatever Golden State paid to dang near tripling that within what, 3 seasons, if there's no value.
Yeah.
If there's no sustainability, that doesn't happen. So again, it comes down to how are these numbers being shared, and how are the two sides going to agree to a set of numbers to then move forward. But I would imagine that some of them have to be shared before any of that happens. But okay, let's close out the episode. We're going to talk a little bit about Unrivaled. And we do know some names are coming back. Stewie's coming back. Sky. No Sabrina Ionescu, Brian.
Muy interesante.
Yes, haven't seen Sabrina's name so far. We do know last year was a bit of a stretch for her anyway, but as far as we know, is still an investor. But definitely some Seattle Storm players that we're going to see. Malunga comes with a little bit of baggage, perhaps, because of what happened in Fenerbahce. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But Eric Wheeler, Ezi Magbagor, and on the coaching side, Noel Quinn, who, for those who were following us in our Slack channel, was definitely at Unrivaled for some of the spicy moments between Jewel Lloyd and Skylar Diggins. So, I'm excited for Unrivaled. I'm a little gutted. This is the only time I would ever say that I'm actually sad I'll be going to the Winter Olympics, because that means I won't be going to Miami. I'd much rather be in Miami covering basketball than in I'm okay with being in Italy. I'm not okay with being in Italy during the winter when the other option could be basketball in Miami. So, just from that perspective, I'm a little bit, I'm going to be going through some FOMO. But again, Unrivaled has seen their own exponential growth year over year. We've seen them expand. We've got 2 new teams, which is why Noel Quinn is brought in as a coach for because there were 2 additional teams. But also, we have seen a few of the coaches not return this coming season. Andrew Wade, though, is one of the returning coaches. That's something we'll talk about on Gotta Get Up. But real quick, we'll go around the horn. Roberta, we'll start with you. What are you excited for when it comes to either Unrivaled, Athletes Unlimited, or some of the off-season basketball off-season for the WNBA, some of the winter basketball that we might still get to see?
So I'm going to start with AU, because the thing that excites me the most is to see role players are not main players, right? Is to see players who are not like stars in the WNBA be the stars at AU. So I love seeing those players thrive and get like their best basketball showcased, and I really love to see it. One of the players that I'm most excited to watch is Izzy Harrison. She always does so well in the New York Liberty. She was great help for them, but she's not she's not who the players are drawn for. So I'm very excited to watch her during AU. As for Unrivaled, I'm very excited for the team reveals, because they're gonna things are gonna shake up a little bit. The Hoodie Hoos are separated.
I know, it's wild.
Can I be a little spicy? Can I say something that might be controversial?
You know the consequences. So I mean, I can't
imagine. Well, it's because the coaches choose. But imagine if like Noel Quinn ended up coaching Jewel Lloyd and Unrivaled. That would be like Hilarious.
No, the coaches. There are no GMs. The GMs are the coaches. So
True. Okay. Yeah.
it could happen, but if it does, then Noelle did it to herself.
Yeah, it will be. But anyways, I'm excited about this shakeup and how the teams are going to form. It's going to be interesting to see how Noelle Queen does in the team
Yes, it definitely
shaking,
will be.
because we're gonna be like, okay, that's really a Stormfront office issue because Noelle Queen knows how to operate her team. But anyways, I'm excited to see the content. The content from Arrival is always top notch. With the coaches, they have been posting some coaches content that's very fun to watch. So there's a lot that I'm excited about Arrival, and the 101 also. Yeah.
All right, Brian, how about you?
I want to say, firstly and most importantly, Noelle Quinn, my one is in the air because you keep a job, and I appreciate someone who keep a job. So shout out to you. But also on the coaches side, I'm excited to see some old Liberty friends, Ronika Hodges and Zach O'Brien.
Yes.
I'm excited for them. I hope they do well, and I love Unrivaled for a lot of reasons, but one especially is that it's almost like a proving ground of sort where it's, oh, hey, I can really sort of like experiment and push my basketball mind in a new role to sort of see how I can experiment with space, different concepts, different sets, all those kind of things. So I'm excited to watch that. On the player side, speaking of an old Seattle friend, I want to see how Lee Yuru does in this kind of spaced-out setting.
Yeah, I think that'll be.
Yeah, that's in Dallas.
Made some strides.
It'll be fun, and I also love that we're getting some players who aren't like the big superstars, but like are solid role players. So I'm like, Erica, our old fave, Beck Allen. That's your time to shine.
I love Beck Allen.
I love Beck. I still call her Rebecca. Y'all can take Beck somewhere else. I've known her since she was Rebecca at Madison Square Garden. Thank you very much. When we had locker room access, those were the days. Some of you kids will never know. But yeah, I'm with y'all. I'm looking forward to it all. Obviously, I'm looking forward to what happens from the collective bargaining agreement. I did want to come back to this from Craig. Do you guys, first of all, there's only just the one guy, and his name is Brian. Do you folks think Seattle is one of the teams that made an offer to Sandy? I have gone on the record with my opinion here. There's no way Sandy Brondello should have considered Seattle. Seattle probably should have considered Sandy, but Sandy should not have considered Seattle.
I was not able to confirm that Seattle made an offer, but I do know that Seattle try to bring Sandy in. They went after her.
Unsuccessful, obviously. I don't see that. Some people were saying Sandy to Dallas.
No, those are the Pagebackers fans.
Like, what? Like, y'all be so for real. Anyway, but that's why we're here. We definitely have strong opinions. Like, when you have the number 2 pick, you play the number 2 pick. But also insider information, historical context, we bring it all to you here. This is an episode mostly of Tempestagi Talk, but as you can see in the off season, and especially the way these two teams seem to be intertwined irrevocably, like forever, we will be talking about a little bit of Liberty and a little bit of Seattle Storm news on every podcast. But for Roberta Rodriguez, who is my everyday co-host on Tempestagi Talk, we also want to thank Brian Fleurantin, who of course heads up our newsletter, the Women's Basketball Roundup, and is my co-host over at Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. We have a lot of questions. That just means so many questions. That just means that there's a lot more deep dive off-season content to come. But again, for Roberta and Brian, I'm Erica L. Ayala, aka Head Black Rosie in charge. This has been an episode of Tempestagi Talk, and we'll catch you on a coming episode of Gotta Get Up, where maybe Brian will talk about who the New York Liberty hired. I mean, they gotta get someone eventually, right? They gotta get someone eventually.
they'll mess around and be like, "Hey, Brian, come coach for the year. We need somebody."
Listen. They'll pull Whoopi Goldberg out of the nosebleed section in MSG. Be like, go Eddie. That's such a good movie. Underrated Whoopi Goldberg throwback. If you are a New York City Hoops fan and you don't know the movie Eddie, you're too young. That's all I gotta say about that. That's all I gotta say. It's a classic. But yeah, hopefully we'll get a coach's announcement there. Sandy Brondello had her introductory press conference. We'll go over that. We know that Sonia is going to have hers tomorrow, so we'll be able to go over that. Lots of news. And we didn't even get into NCAA. Not really.
Oh my God, that's true.
This very week. So lots going on here. Aloysius is saying a storm is brewing in Seattle. Book of UNESCO has turned the chapter. Listen, don't even get me started.
Not from New York to Liberty.
Don't even get me started on people reading into the tea leaves. All right, Roberta, you know what time it is. I told you you'd know the consequences.
Oh man, I missed that.
Roberta getting thrown off in the last second of the chat. Yes. I was like, you can say what you want, but you know what's going to happen if I don't like it. I don't believe
I thought you hadn't heard it.
Oh no, I heard you. See, I hear everything because I'm a good host. I'm a cool host. I'm a sharp host. I keep up with what's going on. I had to get through my thought is what it is. But it's just trying to make sure we're thanking Aloysius who came through, Craig who came through. Who else do we have in here? I didn't even see this one. The bench, man. Rocky saying the bench. Yeah. It was an issue, but we'll see how Sonia does. But thank you so much for hopping on. I was like, Black Rosie Media. Oh, wait, that's me. And then also we had Kevin hop in earlier. Thank you so much. We'll be back in another week or so with another episode because, again, the coaches carousel keeps on turning. But that'll do for tonight. Make sure if you're not already subscribed, you do so and follow Roberta and follow Brian and I on all of our personal accounts as well. All right. Good night, everyone. It's not a Gotta Get Up episode, so we won't be Ellie waving out. We'll just do a regular wave. And I will see you in the 206 real soon. Peace out, everybody.